All right, we are live now. All right. So yesterday we started talking through the roadmap. For those of you, who didn't get in the notification and the meeting link early, we talked through the roadmap for these 6 to 8 weeks that we have ahead of us. We talk about a couple of things about the role, the responsibility of the business analyst. We talk about the product owner, the BSA, and the PM. Talk about the product owner again, the project manager. Talk about the product manager as well, what you're going to be looking out for and what you will be doing. And then we look at some basic case studies here, different platforms, whether it's a banking and finance domain, whether it is retail domain, whether it is insurance domain, whatever the domain might be, e-commerce, we still have, it is still the same approach, basically, right? It is still the same approach to launching and going live with a platform. So yesterday, I think we got up here, right? So we talked through a couple of domains here: finance and banking, insurance, agriculture, e-commerce, healthcare, federal government, automobile, consulting, sports and recreation, travel and tourism, and then real estate. So I will do my best, right? In these sessions, I'm going to do my best to get to at least, try and get you guys hands-on, right? Build different systems and re-architect different processes and different use cases in one or two, three or four, five of these domains that are out here, right? So that gives at least you guys get a good picture when it comes to how these stuffs run, right? So today let's start. Let's kickstart over here. So when you get into any kind of environment, right, you're not going to work alone. You are not working all by yourself, right? You're going to be working with a couple of people, right? And some of the team members that you will be working with. Number one, these are typical roles. By no means is this list here exhaustive, like, the end of the tail and say, hey, that's it. You're not going to meet, you'll definitely meet other titles, other roles, people wearing different hats here and there. But these roles are critical and you need to be able to know and understand what they do and how they impact your functional area, the area that you also work, right? So let's look at the number one role, executive sponsor. This is a title and a role that you should always salute this person. When you hear that somebody is an executive sponsor, then he's a boss, right? He's a big man. Why is executive sponsor, like the most important individual here? So executive sponsor, he's the one that pays all of us. We are on his budget, basically, right? So he's the one that cuts the budget. Got a couple of people, all of us, the team members, every project, he's the one that approves the budget and say, I'm going to give you guys $50 million to work on this project for the next, 2 to 3 years. I'm going to give you guys $10 million to work on this project for this X or Y number of years. So the executive sponsor, he is what? The main person, right? If you need any information about this project, you should go to him. If you need, you need to know if you have a roadblock, something needs to be escalated, it has to be the executive sponsor because he cuts the check for everybody. He's a money man. He pays every member of the team, right? Of the development team and so on and so forth. So this project, the sponsorship, he is the one that is what, the sponsor for this project, right? So when you go into any typical environment, you might hear that, oh, this S person, whether it's a male or female, it does not really matter. But you're going to get to know that there's somebody who is the executive sponsor and you need to know. So he's the main guy for this project, right? he's sponsoring this project, approves the budget, and do all those type of things. But like any other, very important person or personality, he's always busy. His calendar is full. To be able to get on his calendar, that is like, breaking the back of, maybe a camel, something very difficult, right? To be able to log in, 30 minutes of his time, 1 hour of his time, it's going to be very difficult. And then to be able to have him on your meetings, like, your typical, daily meetings and project meetings, you will not usually find him, like every day. And so it's really hard to get him. So what does he do? He kind of takes his hat and place his role on somebody that you will find, and we call that this person the solution owner, right? The solution owner. So let's say we are a bank and our name is Bank ABC, right? ABC Bank. We are building a platform, and let's say we are building a platform for maybe money remittance, right? We want people to be able to send money to their home countries, right? From America. Okay, that's great. That's a great feature. So the executive sponsor, typically, and he's supposed to be giving information about all this project and whatnot, what we're supposed to be building. But since he's busy, he's going to like relinquish, his, kind of role and his place and say, hey, if you need anything, go to X or YB, and then he is going to be the solution owner. So anything that we need to know about maybe what we are building and what the executive sponsor, he has approved the budget for this project, we will have to get with the solution owner, right? Solution owner. So let's say the solution owner, let's say a project for money remittance, right? And in that department within the bank, we have senior managers, we have, EVPs, executive vice presidents, and senior vice presidents, SVPs, and whatnot. And he is the solution owner. He is responsible for remittances across the organization, right? Whether it is within continental US or external remittances that goes outside of the United States, to different countries, Mexico, to some parts of Africa, countries in Africa, everywhere, Europe, Asia, India, so whatever. But again, you guys can imagine the enormity of his role, right? He's also very, very busy. He's also a very busy person, the solution owner, very, very busy person, And so what does he also do? He will also give us to somebody we call the subject matter expert, right? SME. Now, SME, unlike the other two roles that we just talked about, the solution owner and the executive sponsor, he is going to be a point of contact, daily. So the subject matter expert is somebody within that department of maybe remittances or maybe bill payment, whatever. He knows how things work from A to Z, right? From A to Z. If you tell him that, hey, can you tell us, how you guys want these remittances to be done? He's going to be able to break it down for you and say, this is how the process flow work. Inside bill payment, inside, money remittances, the money gets in over here, we have XYZ bank, the money gets over here, we have an acquirer, whatever payment, he's going to be able to break down all the workflows, all the processes, how money get transferred, and then the receiver in that receiving country, receiver's country will have to go and pick it up. He knows the roadblock, right, from A to Z. So if we need any information, we're going to be contacting the subject matter expert, the SME, and he's going to tell us everything that we need to know for us to be able to build a great, awesome, product, right? That, hopefully we can deploy it. Hopefully our customer get excited and they can use, right? So that is a subject matter expert. Now, another guy that, typically you run into, it might be the project manager, right? Even though in some of the newest model of delivering product, that is the agile methodology, this role is sort of being taken over by a title we call Scrum Master, right? And we've been talking about this as we move along. So Scrum Master kind of like, it's filling in the traditional role of a project manager, but typically project manager coordinate, monitor, ensure that project is on track. We are able to deliver on time, and we have all artifacts of the project and our deliverables are met. And then we can demo to the end client user, that is operations team, and they are excited about it. And then, of course, if there are roadblocks, along, whilst we are building these great features and great product, he's the typical guy to escalate the issue and make sure that he can resolve these issues for us in a timely fashion, right? So that is another guy that you're going to meet. Yesterday, we talked about the product manager, so I'm not going to talk about a product manager, but we have the end users, right? Anytime we build any kind of platform, systems, whatever, applications, we have two types of users. We have internal end client users, and then we have external end client users. Typically, if you look at a bank, for instance, right? We have workers, we have staff, we have employees. They come to work every day. What do? They administer some function. They have some application where they log in and then they administer their roles, the work that they do, right? So in our case of the money transfer, the remittances, right? So in case, let's say I'm sitting down at home here in Atlanta and I'm trying to send money to a family member in Ghana, and then I run into issues and I call the bank, they will typically say, hold on, whilst we try to get somebody to resolve your issue for you. Who are they calling? They're calling somebody from the operations team, customer service support, or the customer success team, right? And this person will log in to a platform. So that means when we develop application, there is an interface where, end client users, as internal end client users, they also kind of log in the interfaces with, right? Where they log in, they administer the function, resolve issues for customers, and so on and so forth. So we have the internal end client users. And then we have the external end client users. So who are the external end client users? There are people like myself who will, log in to maybe Bank of America, to log in to Wells Fargo Bank, log in to Wave. I know Ghanaians over here in the US, we are all fond of using Wave as a means of, remitting money to our family and friends in Ghana. And, there are a couple of them, MoneyGram, Western Union. So end client users, we sit at home, we have the Western Union app, mobile app, or we have the MoneyGram, mobile app, and then we download it, we install it, we have it on our phones. Anytime somebody calls us, hey, can you help me out on this? And then we grab our phone and we send them a little something, right? So that is the external end client users, right? External users. So two types of users that you got to keep in mind, guys. So we have the internal end client users, and then we have what? The external client users, or the external users, right? And typically the internal client users, they are part of the operations team, right? So when we build solutions, we don't build for ourselves, we build it so that people can use, whether they are our own staffs or employees within the same organization or customers that are out there that get to use it. So yesterday we talked about the business analyst. So you might be a product manager. Some of you will work as a product manager. You will work with business analysts. You work with product owners as well. Typically, the difference between, and guys, keep in mind, the difference between, let me break this down for you guys. The difference between a product manager and a product owner is, their role is sort of like similar, but here is the difference. The product manager operates at the strategic level, and then the product owner operates at the operational level, right? When it comes to building platforms. So the product manager operates at the strategic level, and here is why. He's responsible for, like yesterday I talked about it, the business strategy. He looks at the competitors' landscape. How is my product going to do? P&L, profit and loss. He gets into all those type of things at a very high level. And then he also defines the vision and the roadmap for what he or she wants to build, right? The product owner on the other hand, carries the vision of the product manager and then take it to the operational level. So when I say operational level, he kind of like be the gatekeeper who will be in touch with the development team on daily basis, right? Every day he is with the development team, and on daily basis there are agile ceremonies. When we get into agile, we'll be talking about some of these things. One of the ceremonies is, daily stand-up meetings. So we have a meeting that we call daily stand-up meeting, and that kind of meeting, when we come on, usually it's supposed to not last more than 15 minutes. That is daily stand-up meeting. So the team members get on this call or Zoom or whatever the break, maybe Microsoft Teams, and then all that they talk about is that what they work on the previous day, what they're going to be working on today, and if there are any blockers, if there are any issues that needs to be resolved for them. That's all. That's daily stand-up meeting. That's what we call stand-up meeting. It's one of the agile ceremonies. We will get into that, later on. But the product owner operates at this level, operational level, and ensure that, the team members, they are in line, they are developing, they are not taking a departure from the overall vision of the product feature set and the overall roadmap, right? So he or she has a duty to align them, to bring them back in again and say, hey guys, this is not what we said we were building. You guys need to follow the roadmap, right? So he's like the gatekeeper. And then he or she is also responsible for enabling requirement or product feature set consensus, right? So if there is, some clarity that is needed, right? If the team members need something to be explained, to them, it is going to be the duty of the product owner to clarify. So he's a single point of truth, and he or she is also the single point of contact when it comes to clarity, right? So if the team members need something to be clarified, that is a guy. So he participates actively in this meeting so that if they have questions, they have doubt, something does not look good, something does not look straight for the development team, you kind of clarify for them and say, hey, no, this is what this feature is supposed to be addressing, right? So that is the difference between the product manager and then the product owner, but they work hand in hand. The product owner sort of, liaise with, the product manager and ensure that the vision and the roadmap that they have out there is being followed and is being adhered to in all ways, right? And then the development team, we have a developer, or you can say software engineer. So hopefully, whilst all these requirements and product features that have been translated into the right format of business requirement documentation and whatnot, developers will look at it and then they'll start developing the applications, right? They'll start developing it. After the development is done, now it is time for us to test, right? It's time for us to test the application. So in our environment, we're going to have people who will be wearing the title, or who we call software test engineers, or software quality assurance engineers, or quality assurance engineers, or test engineers. You might, find one of these names, whether a test engineer or tester or software test engineers. You're going to be working with these people. So keep in mind, right? Every environment that you go, more than likely, you'll have within your team, you will have maybe 4 developers or 6 developers, and then you might have like maybe 2 or 3 software test engineers as well. That is the composition of teams, and I've been involved in teams for years. So usually that is the structure, the composition of teams. So, or the ratio. And then you're going to find people within the DBA, database administrator, or some data modelers, infrastructure, application architect, UI UX engineer. Yesterday we touched on the UI UX engineer a little bit, but the UI UX engineer, their roles are becoming popular. They gain a lot of popularity, and organizations are essentially beginning to, kind of recognize the huge role that they play. Back in the days, more than 8 years ago, we didn't kind of like, have UI UX engineers as part of our teams, but now UI UX engineers are part of, every development team. Why? Because we want great user experience. We want platforms that would deliver great user experience. And UI UX engineers, they have that charge, they have that mandate to, give us an impression of designs that actually work, that are user friendly, right? We don't want designs that people will get on platforms, get on the mobile app, and then they'll be looking for something, and it will take them a whole 1 hour to be able to find what they're looking for. And so people like the UI UX engineers, they have great, appetite for, great designs. And so that is their role. And I will not try to be one, right? I mean, I can try to be one. You can learn, that skill set. They make good money too. But yeah, UI UX engineer, that's what they do. So they give us impression. We will say, oh, on a platform, we want this kind of features, and then they will come out with an impression. And then if we like it, we approve it. If we need a revision, we tell them that, can you push this button over here? Can you change this form over here? Can this form or layout be tossed here and there? And then they'll go ahead and give us another, revision of the same design. So they have a huge role as well. And keep in mind, you're going to be working with them as well. So this list, like I said, is not an exhaustive list by any means. There's so many other roles, people that you're going to be, you will chance on, you will meet at the workplace, you're going to be working with. But hey, these are roles that is very important that I explain to you what individually they do, so that when you meet them at the workplace, you say, who are you and what do you do? You just know that they are responsible for something. But executive sponsor, the solution owner, and the subject matter expert, these are people that, they'll be like your go-to individuals, especially the subject matter experts, right? They'll be your go-to individuals, as you get issues clarified, you get requirement clarified about what we're trying to build or what we're trying to support here. All right, let's keep going. So why analysis? Why business analysis? Why business analysis? So there are a couple of things that we need to know that, kind of reinforces why we're doing this. So number one, analysis, it helps you to understand the structure and the dynamics of the company, right? So when you get into an environment, you're trying to do, wear your hat, perform some analysis. The one thing that we're trying to do here is that we're trying to understand the structure and the dynamics of the company, right? Number two, it allows us to understand the current problems in the target organization. So as we we do the analysis. So somebody is saying that, reserve this question when we get to the end of the tale. I'll come to that. I'll address that question. We don't typically hear of the word, graphic designers over here in America, but we'll address it when that time comes. Okay, so it allows you to understand current problems in the target organization, right? So that's very important as well. So as you work with stakeholders, you work with subject matter experts, and you work with certain individuals, you begin to understand, okay, so this is the problem. And guys, keep in mind, we have something we call gap analysis. Anytime we want to build any type of solution, we always start from the as is, or what we call normally the current state. What is the current state? So our ability to understand the current state is what is going to propel us, going to help us get into what we will call the future state or the desired state, right? So you get into any kind of environment, you get into the system. Let's say we were in Ghana and then we went to, let me use what ministry? Trying to see if I can get a ministry that there's a lot of public facing, so let's say Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then they have an agency within the immigration maybe sector, which is responsible for passport, right? Okay, fantastic. Let's use that example. So primarily, people will have to go and pick up forms from, I don't know whether these days they still do it, but it is very complicated, right? You go to a post office, you go to somewhere, a bank, you go and get a form to fill, and then once you fill this data, then you have to go somewhere and then pay a fee again somewhere else. It's so complicated. How just a simple passport application can get done nowadays. I know that there is a business, there's an express services that is happening. Yeah, I've heard of some express services, so that's good. So if we were to come in, if let's say maybe let's go back like 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, the current state as it is, we will examine or we'll closely look at the current state, and then we'll look at the problem, the challenges. So people have to commute from different parts of the country just so they can get to a place or a bank that they can get access to this passport form. So what is the difficulty here for us to put this form online, right? What is the difficulty here again for us to be able to have payment gateways integrated, right? So that it doesn't matter if your preferred method of payment is mobile money, or Visa, MasterCard, or any other preferred method, maybe PayPal or whatever. So what is the difficulty here for us to integrate, this, payment gateway of anybody's choice, or a handful of this preferred method of payment, and then have these forms filled out? People can submit the application, and then if there are other express services or different flavors of services that we can put out there, what is the difficulty here that we cannot have this done, right? So you get into any kind of place, a problem, there's going to be a problem statement thrown at you. So you look at the problem statement and say, okay, this is the problem statement. This is the issue here. So that is the current state, the as-is state. Back in college, my, some data and analysis class, I remember, there's this woman that was teaching us, their stuff, back in college. So performing gap analysis, the as-is. So as of today, what exists today? What is the problem? What is the issue today? So once we're able to figure this out, the as-is state, then we will know the to be, that is the future or the desired state, right? But before we can get to the desired state, a couple of things will need to happen, right? Yeah. So these are the things that we will be talking about in next sessions, or maybe even later on, even today, right? So analysis allows you to understand the problem. So the problem here, with our passport services and our passport form, we begin to understand the problem. There's so much complicated. You go and fill an application. Sometimes you even abandon. You will even abandon it because it takes forever for just one passport to be done. Whilst in other jurisdiction, passport 10 days, 15 days, whatever number of days. There's a turnaround time, right? You can get it in hand, right? So we got to be able to figure out what really is a problem. What really is the problem here? So that is what analysis does. Number 3 here, it helps you to identify improvement potentials and recommending solutions to enable an organization to achieve the goals. So as you go through this analysis, you begin to list a couple of things. You say, number 1, I think this can be better. This way of acquiring the forms, it can be improved, it can be better. This way of going to a bank and paying a fee and doing all this stuff. I think when I was in Ghana recently. I came last year, March. I returned back last year, but I think for universities, even up to today, when you want to apply to any kind of university or something, you don't have to go to a bank to get a form, and then you go to a bank to go and get a PIN or pay for something, and then you go back to online, and then you use the PIN code, and then you do something. There's so much mess. There's so much mess in the system, right? So you begin to, anytime you get into an environment that's a problem, you begin to see them. You begin to, unpack, okay, this is what we can improve. We can do this in a more better way. There's an efficient way of maybe handling this, right? And then you begin to make recommendations about how this is going to be fixed, how this problem is going to be solved. So the work of analysis, you look at, potential improvement ways that things can be better, right, for the organization that you work with. So you got to keep in mind, this is why we do an analysis or business analysis. It helps you to identify and articulate the need for change. So anytime you want something to be changed, you got to be able to articulate why we need this change, right? You got to be able to put whatever change that you think it will be beneficial to the organization. You put this change into the right format, the right context, so that people or your audience can understand you, right? Without that, your idea can be good. You bring in some of the best creative ideas that can solve our problems for us as a country, as an organization. But if it's not articulated with the right audience, the right way, the need why we need to do this, is going to be lost, right? So that is very important. As you get into any organization that you're going to be working with, keep that in mind. And then to maximize the value delivered by organization to its stakeholders, right? Every organization, change is not the problem, right? But anytime we authorize a change, that change that we have authorized, there has to be some value, right? Well, like we always say, minimizing cost and maximizing profit, right? So stakeholders, they want their platforms to be competitive. Senior managers, VPs, ESVPs, and whatnot, executive vice, senior vice presidents, and president of organizations, CEOs. They all want our platforms to be competitive. They want their banks, their whatever domains that they are. They want them to be competitive enough. But as we do that, we also want to be able to maximize value, bring value to organization. We want to be able to deliver value, maximize value, right? So, if you bring in all the great ideas, creative ideas, and at the end of the day, it's not bringing value to them, then, forget about it. They might not champion it, and every time, you're trying to be creative, you're bringing the best solution, you need somebody that will champion your idea at a very high level for you, right? Somebody that will advocate for whatever that you're trying to bring on board. But of course, value, you got to be able to propose, you got to be able to talk about the value that whatever this idea, this new process that you're bringing to the maybe that product feature, this is what it would deliver to them, and this is what we stand to gain as well. So this is very, very important, guys. This is very important. So this is why business analysis is, performed. This is why business analysis is important here. So let's look at some 6 steps here. 6 steps here. Steps involved in business analysis process. Steps involved in business analysis process. So number 1. We have enterprise analysis. So number 1, we have enterprise analysis. Number 2, we have requirement planning and management. We have requirement elicitation. We have requirement analysis and documentation. We have requirement communication. And then we have the last one, solution evolution and validation. So again, number 1, enterprise analysis. Number 2, requirement planning and management. Number 3, requirement elicitation. Number 4, requirement analysis and documentation, right? Very important. And then number 5, requirement communication. And then the last one, solution evolution and validation. So these are critical steps, process that we need to know. Whilst we express change, whilst we champion change in our various environments, right? So number 1, let's look at the enterprise analysis. So the enterprise analysis, this area covers a collection of pre-project activities that leads up to project selection, guided by the business analyst, the product owner, or system analyst, right? So as we want a change, we want to re-architect processes, re-architect, a workflow within a product feature, within a system, a platform, whatever might be the case. There are some series of activities that needs to happen. So this is what we call enterprise analysis, right? Covers all the collection of activities that should happen. So it helps us to maintain the business architecture. So as you bring in all these cool ideas, as you bring in all these great way that is going to be efficient, right? We will better serve our customers as an organization. We need to be able to look at our architecture. How will this impact on our current architecture, right? We need to be able to prepare a business case, and you guys should be working on a couple of business cases. I'm going to be giving you guys, I think, almost about 5 or 6 hands-on business cases that you guys will be working on. You guys will build an elevator, you guys will build a vending machine, a fuel pump gas machine, and all that. So this is just a hint, right? I'm giving you guys a hint of what's coming up. So you guys will prepare business cases, why we need it, who are going to be the personas, actors and other things. So get ready for that. Keep that in mind. And then preparing for decision package. And then lastly, you got to be able to present, right? You got to be able to present. We always present what we call proof of concept, POC, proof of concept. Proof of concept, somebody got to buy into that idea. So I've got a couple of proof of concept for organizations. I do a lot of vendor assessment and evaluation, and I present my findings and say, hey, I think, with this current problem here, this is the route that we need to go. We need to go this route, left or right. Where do we go? If we go right, this is the benefit. If we go left, this is the benefit, right? So you got to be able to explain to senior managers, VPs, your proof of concept, right? So preparing for a decision package, that is what is going to be in there. This is very important, right? Keep that in mind. So move on from enterprise analysis, let's go to requirement planning and management, right? Now that, we know what we need to do, and, we sort of gotten some green light, for what we want to build and what we want to change within our systems, within our processes and whatnot. Now what? So requirement planning and then management. In this step, you need to define the tasks, the resources, which are associated with the planning and management of the requirement, right? This helps you to ensure that the set of activities that you're undertaking is appropriate according to the specific project, right? It's also very important to capture the changes correctly and consistently. So as we want to do this, you got to be able to now lay out some plan, right? Some resources. Again, you're working with people. Sometimes some project that you are leading, some project that you're on, some system you want to build for the organization, you got to be able to go to management and say, I want you guys to hire X, Y type of people for me. I need this, skill set. You need some resources. You need some equipment. You need some tools. Sometimes even, you guys will have to retool the whole organization. It depends, right? Different product feature sets. Sometimes it calls for a whole legacy modernization. You look at your current architecture, look at your current, system, infrastructure, and then you guys will have to, get some legacy, modernization, ongoing, right? So resources, whether people or whether equipment, whether systems, infrastructure, or whatever, you got to look at it. You got to be able to define the tasks. What is going to happen? Series of tasks that's going to happen for you to be able to get to that destination that you guys are going, right? So you got to be able to define the tasks and the resources that are needed, right, for this product features and requirement that we want to build. Let me see a yes in the chat box so that I know you guys are with me so far. I've not lost you guys. We're getting into our meat and potatoes, getting exciting. We're building systems already. So let me say yes. I see from Ben, I see from Chris, from Francis, from Kojo, from Daku. Who else am I missing? Come on, let me see a yes. So I know you guys are with me. I didn't lose somebody. Okay. All right, William, yes. Okay, all right. Good. All right, Robert. All right, great. So this is very important, right? You look at, we need to plan. We need to manage our resources and whatnot. So this is very important. Let's get going. Let's move. Requirement elicitation. So now that, we've gotten some approval, talk about some planning, things here and there. Now, requirement elicitation. Now, there are stakeholders, right? There are key or functional areas that what we are building, there's going to be that impact, maximum impact. They will have that kind of impact, right? So requirement elicitation is a phase that consists of researching and discovering the requirement of the system from the users, customers, and stakeholders. So this is what we want to build. But we will need to talk to the users, whether internal users or external users that use this application, right? We need to talk to our customers. We need to talk to our other stakeholders, right? Subject matter experts, solution owners. We need to talk to them. We need to even talk to maybe our executive sponsor, right? What he knows about this. He has been there with this organization for maybe 10, 15 years. He knows a lot that you don't know, right? Some people have been there working for this company for almost about the whole entire time of their life. I remember when I went to Nissan, when I was at, Nissan Motor Corporation. Some people have been there. Some people right from college, right from graduating from college, they start working for Nissan. So, are you going to skip them and then build something that, you're not going to consult them because they definitely know something that you don't know, right? So whether you're building the Nissan Owners Portal, you're building the Nissan Leaf, an EV, electric vehicle, mobile app, whatever you're doing, you got to be consulting people who have been there from the beginning, right? So it's very important. Some of them, they've been doing for 25 years, 30 years. That's like your whole entire time that you've been in existence, your whole life. Some people have been working since that time. So you cannot skip them. They know the platform in and out, what they've been doing, what existed, what did not exist, what you guys are trying to do, and how he or she might be able to support you, right? So you can't do without them. So you got to be able to consult stakeholders. Very important. In some of the sessions and slides, we'll talk about stakeholders in a more proper context. You guys will get to understand stakeholders who really, who are these people. We'll talk about stakeholders. But you need to be able to, observe users. When people come to the bank, what do they do? So you see sometimes requirement that is elicitation techniques. We have something we call survey and observing. So you can go and sit at somewhere, you look at the process. It's like re-architecting or building something for like a watch seller. Sometimes it's very funny. We are all buying the same watch, we are all paying the same amount of money. But if maybe Hajia, once you get over there, then you say, maybe some Hausa word, one or two, you might be saved and other people might be in the queue, right? This is just on a very light note, right? So if somebody can say one or two words in Hausa, right, and say Hajia something, and then that's it. He will skip the line because we don't have a process in there, right? So we got to be able to sit down and say, okay, we need to build a process map in here. We need to build a system here. So usually customers, how do they flow in? How they come in? They all come in and stand on the big bowl that Hajia is selling this watch here, and hopefully you can catch her eye and say you have been there, you have been waiting, right? But if there's a process in there where if you come in, you start from this point, you say you want this piece or unit or whatever, spoons or whatever of wachi, and then you pay your money, you go to the waiting area, and then when it gets your turn, you say your food is ready for order number, whatever, and then you get it, right? We got to build process mapping in all these spaces, right? So got to observe users, listen to feedback from customers, talk to stakeholders. These are all part of the requirement elicitation, right? All of this, a combination of all of these things, activities will inform you how the system should be built and how it will impact and benefit your users and your stakeholders. So requirement elicitation, we need to know that. All right, moving on. Requirement analysis and documentation. Requirement analysis and documentation. So now that we are talking to customers, we're getting feedback from our users, all of these things are happening behind the scenes. We're talking to stakeholders. Shouldn't we be, noting something now, or taking note, documenting something, putting something together? Yes, we got to be doing that. So requirement analysis and documentation. This stage describes how stakeholders need to analyze, structure, specify the design implementation of a solution. Requirement analysis helps you to define the methods, the tools you use to structure the raw data, right? So as we engage with stakeholders, as we talk to our customers, we're getting feedback from left, center, forward, right? We need to be able to put all this information together in a proper structure, right? That here is what it is. We talk to stakeholders. These stakeholders have approved of this. We talk to these individuals. We talk to this. These are our use cases. You put all of this information together in the right perspective. So it's very important, right? Moving on. Requirement communication. So this is the phase of is a collection of activities for expressing the output of the requirement analysis. Moreover, every requirement needs to be packaged, evaluated, and approved before the solution is implemented. So here, what we are saying here is that when we have done all the things that we've just talked about, right? Very important. Now we got to be able to show there has to be output, right? We got to show our stakeholders that here is a document of all the things that we have been doing for the past 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You know, sometimes requirement gathering and requirement elicitation, it takes time. You know, if it is a waterfall type of project, it's not agile. You know, it can take, sometimes it can take about, 90 days. It can even take more than that, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. You're just talking to stakeholders and people, right? On unpacking and unraveling, facts, fact finding mission. You're on a fact finding mission, right? So very, very important. So we need to be able to communicate the requirement back to the people that, are signing off on this project, that this is what, we have put together. So it needs to happen. So know that. And then the last one is a solution evolution and validation. So this phase ensures that a solution should be able to meet the stakeholders' objective. So now that, we've gotten all this approval from individuals, we've gotten approvals from people here and there, the solution that we want to put out there, our proof of concept and whatnot, we need to be able to validate it, that would this work? Would this solve the issue? And how would this transform the already existing system, or what we talked about as the current state system to the future state or the desired state, system, right? So very, very important here. So we look at the solution that we are proposing, and then we ensure that, this solution will solve the problem. So we need to validate it, right? We'll be using the key term validation a lot. We're talking about verification and validation, and they are not the same. Verification and validation, sometime in the future, some of our sessions, we'll be talking about this. So that is it, guys. That is it, guys, for today. I know I want to leave some time for questions. So the steps involved in business analysis process is what we have talked about today. So enterprise analysis, requirement planning and management, requirement elicitation, requirement analysis documentation, requirement communication, and solution evolution and validation. All right, now I'm going to turn my attention to the chat box and then look at the questions that are already in there. So Emmanuel says something at the beginning. Let me start with that. If you have questions, go ahead and put it out there. And let me also try and see if I can unmute you guys. So we want this to be interactive as much as possible, right? We got to be talking because we're building something together. All right. So let me try and see how can I unmute you guys once I take this question here in the chat box. Okay. All right. And if you don't want to talk, it's okay. You can mute. It's okay. It's just okay. Yeah. All right, so let me take the first question here. That Emmanuel said that what's the place for? What about graphic designers? Are they part of the team?
Hello.
Okay, so this is a very important question. The work of the graphic designer. Over here in our type of setting, you don't get to hear a whole lot about graphic designer. Graphic designer's role is more about designing of like a logo or some other brand artifacts, right? Some brand identities. They get to work on stuff like that. But over here in our type of setting, we don't work with graphic designers, because these companies are already in existence. They don't need a logo right now, unless maybe you're going to be working for like a startup, right? That they are now beginning to put things together, their brand and their brand identities and all those kind of artifacts are now being worked on. That is a time that I foresee, or I kind of like imagine we will need the role of the graphic designer. The graphic designer's role, largely in our type of setting, is what we call the UI UX, and it's more than that. The UI UX engineer is it is not our type of. See, when you talk about graphic designers, what immediately comes to mind for me is people that work on church flyers in Ghana and Africa, because the only thing that they do best is church flyers, and somebody's going to blast or somebody's going to kill and somebody's going to do something. So church flyers and that type of thing, that's what graphic designers are known for. But in our type of settings, we talk about UI UX, user experience, right? So user experience, and that is what we do most of the time over here. All right, and then the second question here, Francis is saying that, thinking of elicitation views from some people, do we have any set of individuals we're going to have some interviews with and then ask for their opinions? Is that going to be part of the work? Yeah, of course, yeah. So Francis, yeah, definitely you're going to be talking to certain individuals with the organization, that's your stakeholders, and you will be interacting and you will interface with a lot of people within your team. You'll be talking to your team members every day, and then you're going out from your team, talking to stakeholders, other managers, seeing subject matter experts in different departments. So it's not just your organization or your department alone, your department alone or unit. You might reach out to core banking operation. You might reach out to mortgage loans. You might reach out to call center managers. You might reach out to compliance. You might talk to marketing departments. So if you take, for instance, as I'm using the banking space, right? There's so many departments and units that either depending on what you are building and what you are responsible for, you will be interfacing with. So there's a couple of people that you're going to be working with. All right. Daku says, thank you for the great. Okay. Is there a specific channel of communication between team members concerning requirement communication? Yes. So there are great tools that are out there, enterprise tools that are out there, very expensive, but we'll be using one of those tools, in even our hands-on trainings, Jira. We have a company called Atlassian. So Atlassian, they have, great stack of product. They have the Jira, Confluence, Bamboo, TeamCity. They are all stack of product that they sell. Microsoft also has some good stack of product, VSTS, the Azure, DevOps, tool that's out there for requirement management. There are other tools for communication, like Microsoft Teams. So Teams is a great tool that's out there for communicating with people within the organization. We also have Slack. Slack is also another great tool also for communicating around with different people within organizations. So Slack, Microsoft Teams, what else again? There are so many of these tools, so many of these enterprise, communication tools out there that are used for communicating, and some sort of like requirement, traceability metrics type of tools that are out there for tracking and getting people to comment on issues and respond to something. There are so many of these enterprise tools that are out there. Yes, to answer your question. All right, we got 1 more minute and then we are done. Anything else? Okay. All right. So thank you, guys. Somebody say something. Okay, let me take it. So Francis is saying, who normally chair the stakeholder meetings, right? So you are the one that is facilitating that meeting, right? You'll be the one that will be facilitating that meeting. So definitely you'll be the one that is that will chair the the meeting. So you should have an agenda, and then we'll talk about some of these things. Some of our subsequent meetings, I will talk about your agenda and other things. I will just run through some of these things, but it will not be a slide. But I will just speak extemporarily on some of this stuff, right? You should have an agenda, what you're going to be looking at and what you're going to be expecting from your stakeholders and questions you have for them, and that type of thing. So I'll talk about some of these things in the future. Just put it somewhere, put it somewhere in the parking lot. We will address this. Don't forget. All right, guys. I think that's it. It's already 8 o'clock here. My time. All right. So that's it. We will take off from here tomorrow. All right. Good night.